Welcome to the Thailand Personal Data Protection Act Introduction course. Upon completion of this course, you will have gained a solid understanding of the Thai PDPA law, how it impacts your business, and your role as an employee when carrying out your duties. The PDPA was introduced and written into the Government Gazette in 2019 to provide protection to individuals and their data, and set a standard on how data controllers and data processors collect, use, disclose, retain, and store the data of those individuals. Personal data is classified as any information used either on its own or together with other information that can be used to identify a living person. The Thailand PDPA follows on from the introduction of similar data protection laws across the Asian region, for example, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia, and more prominent international laws in the EU, UK, Brazil, and the United States of America. The Thailand PDPA is aimed at providing a balance of the individual rights of the data subject with the need for businesses to legitimately collect, use, disclose, and retain data to their advantage. The main aim is to safeguard against malicious misuse or accidental data breaches which could cause high-risk harm to individuals. Any misuse or accidental breaches can also harm the controller or data processor, causing such damage as a share price crash, reputational damage, or financial loss. There are many examples of large, prominent data breach incidents. The Cambridge Analytica Facebook breach affected 50 million Facebook user profiles which were transferred to Cambridge Analytica unlawfully. This rose to 87 million when the breach details were later updated. In this example, the largest ever fine of $5 billion was imposed. When dealing with data breaches, the size of the business is not the key factor, but the number of data subjects and records involved. In another example, the French regulator, the CNIL, fined Google €100 million for non-compliance with its cookie law on its google.fr website, and a fine of $35 million was also awarded against Amazon for the same offence on its amazon.fr website. The PDPA was published in the Government Gazette on the 27th of May 2019, but due to COVID, it was postponed until the 1st of June 2022. The vast majority of the PDPA was based on the EU GDPR Data Protection Act and applies to both Thailand registered controllers and processors and also international organisations that are not registered in Thailand but offer goods or services to individuals inside the Kingdom of Thailand. PDPA key definitions. There are two classifications of personal data. Personal data is defined as any data pertaining to an individual that enables that individual to be identified either directly or indirectly. Sensitive personal data is defined as personal data relating to a person's race, ethnicity, religion, political opinion, sexual orientation, health, or disability data. PDPA key definitions continued. A data controller is defined as a person or organization that determines the purpose for which personal data is processed. Data controllers are mandated to ensure that all data processing activities carried out by the controller or a third-party data processor acting on their behalf are compliant with the PDPA. A data processor is a person or organization processing personal data on behalf of and under the instructions of a data controller. A data subject is defined as an identifiable natural person who can be identified either directly or indirectly, in particular by referencing an identifier such as a name, an ID number, location data, or online identifier. PDPC. The Personal Data Protection Committee was formed and appointed by the Thai government to enforce compliance with the PDPA. PDPA principles. The PDPA is founded upon 8 principles. Principle 1. Lawful processing. Personal data must be processed lawfully and transparently in accordance with a lawful basis. Principle 2. Purpose limitation. Personal data must be processed transparently for legitimate purposes and must not be used for further processing that is not related to the original purpose it was collected for. Principle 3. Data processing must be adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary in relation to the purpose for which it was originally collected. Principle 4. Data integrity. Personal data must be accurate and kept up to date to preserve its integrity. Principle 5. Data minimization. Personal data must not be retained for longer than necessary to achieve the purpose of the processing activity. Principle 6. Data subject rights. Personal data must be processed in accordance with the individual's rights. Principle 7. Security of data. Personal data must be secured, covering access both logically and physically. Principle 8. Data transfers. Personal data must not be transferred to countries that cannot provide adequate protection without further guarantees and contracts to bind the third-party importer to ensure extra protection is applied to any data disclosed. Processing activities: collection, use, disclosure. Unlike other data protection laws, the PDPA uses consent as the main lawful basis for processing data, unless another lawful basis can be legitimately identified, such as contract, vital interests. Lawful basis for processing of personal data. Here we can see the other lawful basis for processing the data of individuals. There are 7 for each type of data, which can be used for processing both personal data and sensitive personal data. It's important to note that when processing sensitive personal data, you need 2 lawful bases, covering personal data and sensitive personal data. Duties of a data controller. Data controllers are required to adhere to and perform certain duties to achieve and maintain compliance with the PDPA. Data controllers must publish an internal and external data privacy notice for employees and customers. Data controllers must implement and maintain appropriate logical and physical security measures to protect data. This is meant to prevent data loss, unlawful access, or unlawful disclosures. Data controllers must implement and maintain data retention schedules. Data controllers must implement and maintain a data breach and data breach reporting process, including the maintenance of the internal data breach register. Data controllers must maintain an accurate record of processing activities, ROPA. Record of Processing Activities, ROPA. The Record of Processing Activities has a number of important fields which must be captured within each processing activity record, which are the types of data collected, the purpose of the processing of the data, the data controller's contact details, the retention periods for each type of data collected, stored and disclosed, the data subject rights to access, the lawful basis to process the data, any reasons for rejecting the individual's subject to access request, the security measures to protect data collected, used and disclosed. Here we can see an example of the ROPA. To make it easier to complete, always provide a reference number for each activity and always break it down by department. The ROPA should be reviewed on a regular basis. PDPA fines, penalties and brand damage. Penalties applied for non-compliance include administrative fines of up to 5 million baht. Criminal penalties, a fine of up to 1 million baht, 1 year in jail, or both fine and jail. Punitive damages awarded to individuals who have been harmed. Class action, where groups of individuals harmed join together against the controller. Brand damage resulting from bad publicity. This can result in a share price crash, loss of customers, or financial loss. Let's conclude with a few main takeaway points. Always use consent for the lawful basis of processing personal data unless you can identify another lawful basis, such as the performance of a contract, vital interest, etc. Penalties can be awarded of up to 5 million baht, criminal penalties of 1 year in jail, and class actions being brought against the controller. Always think of how you would like your data to be processed and apply those same standards when processing your employee or customer data. Only process data for a lawful and legitimate purpose. Ensure that the correct protection is applied to secure the data. Only retain the data for the least amount of time to achieve your processing purpose or legal obligation. Thanks for joining our PDPA training and for your attention.